Hello, Historical Lit students. I hope that you had a chance to watch the video about what Historical Lit is and to do the first day's assignments. Today we're just going to get started by looking at an article, which is a newspaper article from 1912 from the Wire of the United Press. It relates to the testimony of some of the workers on the Titanic, the RMS Titanic, which was a ship that sank in the North Atlantic Ocean in 1912 after hitting an iceberg. You've probably all heard of the story of the Titanic or seen the movie, maybe, the fictionalized account. What I'm going to do today is to go through and read this with you, and then you'll be able to do the reading check that goes along with it. So here's the article. Titanic officer swears wreck due to company's neglect. Here's the introduction right here. The RMS Titanic was a British passenger ship that sank in the North Atlantic Ocean in the early morning of April 5th, 1912, after colliding with an iceberg. More than 1,500 passengers died. The enormous loss of life created an international scandal as the public wanted to know how such a disaster could happen. As you read, take notes on how the crew members described the tragedy. So we're going to pay attention to how the crew members described the tragedy. Vivid stories told of how great ship sank. By United Press Leased Wire. Washington, D.C., April 23rd. Sworn testimony that neglect on the part of the White Star Company to provide marine glasses, and if we go down and look at what that means, those are glasses designed to help sailors to be able to see over long distances. For the lookout on the Titanic was responsible for the greatest sea disaster of modern times, was the sensation this afternoon of the investigation. Frederick Fleet, who was a lookout in the crow's nest of the Titanic when the giant liner smashed into the iceberg, made oath that not a single lookout on the Titanic was provided with marine glasses, and declared that had his request for such glasses in Southampton not been refused, the Titanic might yet be afloat. I could easily have sighted the iceberg with marine glasses in plenty of time to have the vessel steered out of the way, said Fleet, and gave in detail the request he made in Southampton for them. That would have been before they left for the voyage. Although all other liners are so provided, Fleet swore, his request was flatly refused, and he was told there were no glasses for him. These glasses would have been sort of like a set of binoculars. Third Officer Pittman admitted that the Titanic had been warned that icebergs were prevalent, they were common, but said he did not see any on the Sunday of the disaster. He declared that in his 14 years' experience, he had seen only one iceberg before. Pittman started his testimony in a laconic and brusque manner. Comments on his stolidness were audible in every part of the room. Let's go up and look at these words. Brusque, speaking very directly, showing little or no emotion. Audible, able to be heard. And he didn't use very many words, so he was straight to the point. Then the committee began questioning him on the scenes on the Titanic when it was found that there was no hope of saving the vessel. Officer breaks down. Pittman's demeanor underwent a complete change, and in a choking voice he begged the committee not to press him regarding the death cries of the trapped victims. The prayers and moans of the passengers arose in a mighty chorus of woe. When they learned that hope had vanished, Pittman said, "It was a continual moan for an hour, and it died away gradually. I wish you had not referred to this." Women spectators wept, and committeemen shaded their eyes. J. Bruce Ismay, Pittman said, was standing near a lifeboat, and he heard him ask about the boat loaded with women. Captain Smith, Pittman said, followed out Ismay's suggestions in issuing orders. Pittman declared that his boat saved 40 passengers and 6 members of the crew. He heard 4 explosions, he said, and then the Titanic sank. Pittman said that when he retired at 10 p.m., the vessel was making about 21.5 knots. The collision awakened me, he said. It sounded as if the ship was coming to anchor. I was half asleep and wondered why. I rushed to the deck, undressed, saw nothing, and returned to my bunk in the belief that I had had a nightmare. Then Fourth Officer Boxhall came to my room and said the Titanic had struck an iceberg. When I got to the deck, I found that the lifeboats were being lowered. I saw the firemen coming up from the engine room. Women were crawling over the hatch, and I rushed out to help load the lifeboats. I helped to lower boat number 5, which was assigned to me. A man in a dressing gown, that would be like a pajama outfit, said, "You had better get those women and children over there and load them in the boat." I later learned that this was Mr. Ishmay. I got the boat almost tilled and shouted, "Are there any more women?" There did not seem to be, so I let some men get on. First Officer Murdoch shook hands with me, saying, "Goodbye, old man, and good luck." I never saw Murdoch after that. I believed that only 2 or 3 of the compartments had filled, and that half to the faintest idea that the Titanic would sink. All the passengers in my boat behaved admirably. Women didn't row. Women in my boat were not permitted to row, although some of them wanted to do so that they could keep warm. It was about 3 degrees above zero and very chilly. If the Impart had been bow on, continued Pittman, the Titanic would be afloat now. If 2 or 3 steamers had collided with her, she would not have sunk. It would have required about 6 steamers to sink her by collision. The officer stated that he left J. Bruce Ismay on the Titanic and did not see B again until they were both on the Carpathia. Might have saved more. I know that my boat might have held more, said Pittman, and I told my men to try to pick up passengers from among those who were struggling in the waters. Many of my passengers begged me not to do this, fearing that the boat would capsize or flip upside down. I turned the boat around to go in the direction of cries which I heard. When I saw that the passengers thought the swimmers would swamp up, I did not go back to the spot where the Titanic sank. We took in our oars and drifted for an hour. Gradually the cries grew fewer and finally ceased. When the members of the committee insisted on pressing him for details as to his efforts to rescue the swimmers from the waters, Pittman's voice choked and he replied with feeling, "I had rather that you had left that out. That was all the effort I made to rescue people from the water." We sighted the Carpathia at 3:30. That's the boat that rescued them. When she seemed about 5 miles away, continued Pittman. This was at daybreak, and all cries had stopped long before. The officer stated that he saw no bodies floating in the water. At 1:30 o'clock he saw a white light on the horizon, but was unable to tell whether it was from a lifeboat or a steamer.